Hi everyone. As you know, our group launched globally Call for Ideas initiatives in order to scout new ideas, create and deploy new solutions to build a better tomorrow. In our group, over 1,000 ideas have already been submitted on safety, customers, inclusion, products and processes. As our region, we have proven once more that we are extremely engaged in our sustainability journey. Your participation has been amazing. Now we are going through all ideas within our group, scaling them upward world and implement them locally. We are the global leader in our industry, and acting about future is part of our company culture. Stay in touch, and many thanks again for your great ownership. Thank you.
Welcome to Prysmian Sustainability Week. My name is Patrick Lee, responsible for Prysmian Australia's power distribution business unit. Today we're here to have a conversation around sustainability with special guests from the executive teams of Zinfra, Jemena and Prysmian. I'd like to introduce you firstly to Peter Yankov, Managing Director of Zinfra, Erkan Aydokdo, Chief Executive Officer for Prysmian Australia. Australia is basically Oceania and Southeast Asia. Hammer van Schroff, Chief Executive for Prysmian Australia New Zealand. Sharon County, General Manager for Zinfra and Jemena's Procurement, Property and Fleet. And also we have Logan Cavendan, General Manager for Strategy and Transformation at Zinfra. All right, to generate discussion, I'll kick off with the first question. Peter, could you give us a brief overview about Jemena and Zinfra, along with your ESG ambitions?
Okay, easy question, not an easy answer. Look, Jemena is basically an asset owner of energy assets, both electricity and gas. About $12 billion worth of assets, most of them in Victoria, in New South Wales and Queensland, some of them in New South Wales. I would call Jemena a utility in that sense. We are, most of our assets, electrical assets, are regulated assets. We do own pipelines that are not regulated, so we basically either transfer electrons or transfer molecules from a Jemena perspective. Company's been around for a long time, is doing exactly what any other utility company does, servicing communities, servicing customers, transporting energy from A to B, and try to participate in the energy transition. Zinfra on the other side, so Jemena is the asset owner, so to speak, and is also the asset manager. Long-term strategy on how those assets will actually deliver the objectives of the company, but also the community. If you look at Zinfra, we are a service provider to companies like Jemena, a contractor you may want to say, but we are quite narrow in coverage. We do work only for energy companies and only for similar companies to Jemena if they're distribution, or transmission companies if we go to a higher level. So we have 9 clients. Basically, Jemena would be number 1, and then United Energy, and we do work for AusNet and Transgrid and Powerlink and Tas Networks, Energy Queensland, Evo Energy. In that sense, you see that what we learned with some of our core customers, Jemena, United Energy, for example, we translate those learnings to the others. The differentiation is, first, we operate mainly in the field. We either operate and maintain assets or respond to emergencies created by the storms or fires or anything in between. But we also build projects. We build new assets, and that's both electricity and gas. From a Zinfra perspective, about 2,000 people and about 1,600 contractors in any one day. Jemena would have another 1,000 people that service the assets. That's probably it for the moment.
Over to you, Erkan. Could you give us a brief overview about Prysmian and our ESG ambitions?
Thank you very much. I would like to also thanks for your availability despite your busy agenda. Yeah, sustainability, what a journey. We really take it as a way forward in Prysmian. We are fueled by sustainability goals that I can say we are clustering them in two ambitions mainly. One is the climate change ambition through decarbonization economy. And the second one is the social ambition, which we put a strong commitment, which include diversity, equality, and inclusion. On the climate change ambition, we also adopt science-based targets. According to these science-based targets, our goal is to decarbonize our own processes, which we can name them Scope 1 and 2, by 2035. And also decarbonization of the whole supply chain, which we call it Scope 3, by 2050. Obviously, Scope 3 is a category that mainly dominates the full footprint. It's not so easy, so we need collaboration, we need synergies to arrive these goals. Maybe I can just say also innovation is a very important part of this equation, is the main driver to achieve our goals. And innovation doesn't come for alone. So we have to listen the market, we have to understand the feedbacks, the needs with the great companies like yourself that we already started in the morning to create some ideas for cooperation. That is super important for us to have that contact and partnership. So thanks again.
Well, thank you. Well, from an ESG perspective, it's interesting. Yeah, definitely we can't do it on our own. Strategically, Jemena and Zinfra would have different perspectives naturally. One is an owner manager. From a Zinfra perspective, we need to offer our clients solutions that they may not know they need. And they'll face the same challenges going forward, same as anybody else in the world. So supply chain is very important for us. Security of supply chain first, and then responding to decarbonization, absolutely. For us, it's also resources. Once we have the finance done and the equipment available and materials, then we need to actually, well, install it, commission it, and so on and so forth. All that, if we were busy before trying to decarbonize, and we were struggling, we being in Australia and Zinfra as a business, struggling with resources. But decarbonization will actually impose a tenfold pressure that we can't really see that we're going to achieve it without partnerships. So that's why we're here. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talk about Scope 3 emissions up and down the value chain. Scope 3 is probably the hardest type of emission to measure. There's no standards in the world to really measure it. Yet that's probably the most emissions from the world probably come from Scope 3 emissions. Does Jemena have any specific plans in future, I guess, to target these types of emissions?
Happy to take that one. Definitely, and certainly if I look at not just Jemena from a Zinfra perspective, because obviously Scope 3 emissions, Zinfra needs to understand what theirs are as well, and will be asked for others where we're providing services back up through. So we have an ESG plan. We've identified a lot of our Scope 1 and 2 emissions. It's now Scope 3. Our focus is starting to turn to Scope 3, as is the broader industry. In talking to my peers, we're certainly talking about how we approach that collectively, because we have similar suppliers and similar value chains that feed up into what we do. So certainly there is a huge push to do that, focusing on this year. And as a group, we have a net zero 2050 ambition or target, and we've got a whole ESG plan on a page that we've developed that has a multitude of things. As a gas network, we do have a challenge in that space, so it's looking at alternatives through our biomethane projects, our hydrogen projects, how do we utilise and put, I guess, green gas through some of our pipelines that we have. So there's a bunch of things we're doing as a broader group around the ESG space. But I go back to what Peter said, we can't do this, we can't understand our scope 3 unless we have good, strong relationships with our suppliers to help us identify and bring those through and measure them. I think the biggest challenge with scope 3 is how we measure it. Still not sure how we're going to do that.
Yes, you can't target it until you you can measure it, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, at the energy level, from our perspective, if I look at gas, we're taking simple. Scope 3 is complex, right? But if I look at gas, we try to reduce fugitive emissions as we have them now. And the whole gas owners around the world are trying to do the same thing. From an electricity perspective, is basically reduce losses to start with, right? And if we can reduce losses in transmission and lose losses in basically distribution, it is a step. We will learn along the way. The thing is with asset owners and contractors like us, we may claim to be innovators, but we can't actually. We're not in an environment where we can innovate. So again, it only makes sense to go to people who actually are experts in that domain. Because sometimes some of the targets, we talk about targets, but I would struggle to put a clear plan on 2050. That's why we put in an aspiration. Without our partners and our OEMs, large OEMs, to actually come in and say, yes, there is a pathway. So it's good to hear that you actually have similar targets. If you achieve your targets and we're going to work with you to achieve those, then we have a chance.
Sure.
No, absolutely. So Hamavan, with some utilities, we've already started helping them with scope 3 emissions. Do you have any examples you can share?
Yeah, a good question, Patrick. I mean, the one that comes to my mind straight off the bat is Western Power. Yes. The example where we work in partnership, collaboration with them, changing the drum dimensions to maximize the container saturation of medium voltage cables from 4 drums per container to 6 drums per container. I reckon that would be a classic example of that supply chain partnership with a utility like Western Power, and there will be plenty of other examples where we can work closely with Zinfra and Jemena as well. I mean, the other examples are again in the same vein as what we are discussing about drums. We have an extensive drum recycling program out there where we have OEM service providers that collect drums on our behalf and return them back to us after refurbishment, or we refurbish them ourselves. So drums is a simple topic, but has a big impact on scope 3 ESG target and also in terms of fuel consumptions, all that kind of container saturation or truck saturation. We have plenty of examples where customers are now moving towards maximizing the loads on the trucks, rather than basically supplying 1 drum or 2 drums. They're buying basically once a month or twice a month, full trailer loads, and that's bringing down obviously the emissions and so on.
Simple but effective, isn't it?
Simple but effective, and there's value for the customer as well. It's not sustainability is really great. It's a fantastic cause, but there's value for the customers. The customers also see the value in it. In terms of cost savings and all kinds of initiatives.
And it's really important. We're driving a circular procurement piece where we can go, what do we buy something, how do we reuse it, refurbish it, recycle it?
Exactly.
Like, what's that whole circular life of that particular product we're buying or material we're buying? And can we define that before we even buy it so that we actually know what's going to happen at the end? And I love, how do we work with our suppliers to help us develop some of that innovation to help with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's
That's
interesting.
That's big for us, the circular economy, and recycling, even in our own production. We have been increasing the use of recycled plastics, recycling our own plastics rather than sending the plastics to landfill. Historically, we would just scrap it, but now, we are starting to use more and more recycled plastics in certain applications.
We have developed eco cable that we, as Prysmian, we try to categorize all these parameters into a kind of a spec and certify. And that covers all the recyclability or related topics that we measure. And then we come up with a conclusion that if this cable is good enough with the environment or not. If not, we try to innovate it further. If it fits into that category, we certify and we put it into market. These are quite new innovations that we are working on as a whole group.
Good point, Hurkan. The banner behind you. That's basically, we launched Eco Cable in Australia just beginning of June. We started off in the construction industry, in the building wire sector, and the plan is now to expand it into our power distribution utility space as well, on the back of this whole circular economy.
We'd be very interested in that, actually, because we try to position ourselves as Zinfra. We basically, the customers dream it and we'll build it and maintain it. But we decided to actually start to influence the way customers think, which really means eco cable would make sense to offer solution as alternative, whether customers ask for it or not. We're looking at cement and concrete that is actually reducing the carbon content. And there are many areas where we can do things. In the past, used to be a bit of a command and control. Customer will issue a requirement and everybody will serve. Well, that's on the assumption that customer knows best. However, if industry knows better, I guess, or has got some ideas, we should actually offer them. People who may make those decisions may not be used to that, but people who are responsible for ESG, finance departments and CFOs in our utilities, all of a sudden when they go and try and refinance debt, they get asked questions and they better have answers. Otherwise their debt is going to go up or not get any, which really means we're helping them. So that's why I want to know more about the eco cable, because any bit that we can offer, it will help. I don't think we're going to find it in specifications yet.
Definitely.
Asking the right question is already 50% of the solution. Then we can work on the rest of the 50%.
I think that's half the challenge. I mean, we have a lot of new technology that's emerging and coming out, but getting the utilities to adopt it is a whole process and challenge that we have to overcome. But I'm glad you're quite open to it, Peter and Sharon.
Well, I think utilities are open as well. It's just that they actually want to be invited in the tent and in the partnership. It's our job to invite them. Some might turn up.
Absolutely. Look, it seems that Jemena has a plan, has some targets, has a goal, and has a direction. So it's quite amazing to hear that. Do you have any words of wisdom, Sharon or Logan or Peter, that you can share with other utilities and even manufacturers like ourselves?
I might answer
on your journey to net zero.
Logan might be able to add something, but for us, we had a lot of passionate people across our business that were doing bits and pieces in the whole ESG space, whether it's the environment, whether it's the social piece, whether it was around the governance side of it. What we found was when we actually brought everybody together, it actually made us really look at, we're doing all these amazing things, but no one had actually brought them up into visibility for the broader business. And we were able to create our ESG plan on a page. So a very clear ESG plan on a page, which incorporates all parts of our organisation who are delivering aspects of all of our aspirations of where we want to be in that space of an organisation. So if I would say something would be, don't work alone, collaborate, both internally and externally, because learning from how others have succeeded or not, I think is a really big benefit when you're trying to develop a plan like this. Peter said it before, you know, our partners and other people, whether it's our broader industry peers or our suppliers, getting the knowledge off all of them will help tenfold. You'll be steps ahead to where you were rather than trying to battle through working out where to go next. Learn from everybody else, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think every business has a different journey as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
it depends on your operations, it depends on your resources and constraints, but yes.
But if I just add on to that, I think if we particularly look at net zero, we have to consider a few constraints that we have to achieve that, and it's primarily resources, right? So resources in the form of materials, resources in the form of people, and resources in the form of investments. So those are three key areas that obviously we have some challenges in. And if you look at, we all know what's the prevailing issue with global supply chain, and that needs to be addressed, obviously, and I think it's a collective effort that's being carried out. And if you look at resourcing, for instance, there is massive scarcity in the workforce, and the growth rate to achieve whatever is required to deliver your energy transition plan, particularly in Australia, is phenomenal. You have to have double the headcount in the next, let's call it 10 years, and your growth rate is only at less than 1% a year. So you're not going to achieve that, particularly looking at transmission line workers, if that's a specific area that you're looking at. And investments, if you notice what's being released by asset owners, capital investment is plateaued, it's actually not massively increased. So if we consider all this and we listen to some of the narratives that's being provided, in the first instance, it has to be a whole of industry, a whole of country effort to achieve the outcomes that we need to achieve. So it's not siloed to a specific utility, it is a whole of industry. And when I say a whole of industry, it's not just the utilities per se, it's a partnership with or an alliance with suppliers, you know, manufacturers, service providers, and the utilities per se. So it's a collective effort. And in times of adversity and uncertainty like this, the only way in which both parties wear equal risks is through collaboration. So if there's no collaboration, the idea of achieving the outcomes that we want to achieve as an industry and as the individual unit will never eventuate. Yeah. So that's a little bit of what I would share. Yeah.
Okay, speaking of challenges, Erkan, for Prysmian's business, what are the main challenges that you see in overcoming or in trying to reach Prysmian's goals on sustainability?
Before going to that question, I would like to take your point, Logan, from the collective effort. I believe this is really well said, and we need to really work together to arrive point B, because we are not alone able to go there, right? So maybe this is new, and nobody is behind on the sustainability journey. Some people think that the things are going on and I made a little bit behind. In reality, the future is more promising than what has happened already in the past. Innovation part, I would like to highlight also one E3X solution that we have. Probably Peter, you could be interested in, which is a technology that we developed over time that is a thin and durable coating on the aerial conductor. Mm-hmm. So that improves the heat dissipation and radiation absorption on the product, which results in more power transmission or reducing losses in a given conductor, because you said, Peter, that the transmission losses are quite key in your area. And this can be, for example, a topic that we can try to work together. We have the availability at the group level. We are still innovating it. It can be applied also live lines with the robotics two-part that they come, and when the line is live, we make the coating and the losses are up to 25% lower. So we believe that that can be a kind of a partnershiping together to innovate this solution. I know that the innovation sometimes is a bit scary, but I think we can put efforts together over there, because it doesn't stop. Just this year on this technology, we were able to make it quicker, double speed on the line, lower weight of the instrument, going to more distances, and able to cover most variety of the conductors. So you see, in 1 year, these developments are done. So I think in the next years, this will be a key project. We have some other innovations that can be useful, like Pricam, that we are proactively able to look the performance of a line. So there are many things that we have to probably make some partnership to understand what is best to do. Coming, Patrick, to your question, it is never an easy journey, but we like challenges, no? So but the challenges are lighter when we come together and work together. I will say the engagement is the most critical one, both in the management and the employee part. I can see that your engagement is very high. Prysmian engagement is already there, so that already is the process. Then maybe touching lastly to the scope 3. It's true that there is no specific measurement style, so accuracy is a bit not there. But the journey is there, so direction is there. So even if we are not able to calculate perfectly, in one side we have to take some steps to calculate perfectly in the processing. But it's a real world improvement, so we can really take the right steps on that journey. And I'm sure in the next future we will be able to calculate that one. And let's not forget, if everybody is doing that way, scope 3 will go in a parabolic way down because it's a supply chain decarbonization.
Very interesting. When you need a pilot in Australia for the coating, we are here. That's where we need to be courageous. I'll try to answer the question on challenges. Leaders need to do many things, and looks like now they need to do everything. But courage is important, and comes down to, you finished innovation, you do a lot of hard work. Traditional pathway in Australia for implementing innovation is very difficult. And people tend to go somewhere else first because we are not courageous enough. We would like to position Zinfra in a way that we can pilot with our clients. Work with you together, we get together, we propose the benefits, we talk to decision makers, and then we test. And if everything goes the way we plan, there's a lot of coating that can be applied. And there's an immediate benefit for if you talk in ESG terms, but it's not something that you need a lot to explain if they work well.
You can demonstrate.
Correct. But that courage, I found, starts with a few courageous, and then the others will have to follow, I guess.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's wrap it up. Look, it's been a very good conversation today. I thank you for coming. Hopefully this is just the first conversation of many. I can already see that we're going to cooperate more in the future and together reduce emissions in our supply chains together. Aligning Prysmian's technology with Jemena's needs to reduce emissions is important. As Peter has alluded to, taking a risk as a utility, which traditionally are very conservative types of companies, is also important to get to our emission ambitions. So every day, as Erkan said, if we move a little closer, one step at a time, whether or not we can measure it, doesn't matter. Let's get there together. It's a journey. So hopefully, we can overcome the challenges ahead of us. So thank you again, Erkan, Peter, Logan, Hammer, and Sharon for being here today.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.